So our next speakers are a agency client team of Cathrine Movold, who is a designer gone rogue. She's gone into strategy and is currently experienced director, at Making Waves. And Alexander Lee, who is a business analyst and is one of those real-life service design evangelists in his organization, the way that that was mentioned in Dean's talk earlier today. So they're going to talk about their project that is a very hands-on approach to solving near-term challenges that financial institutions face. So, warm welcome to Alexander and Cathrine. Thank you.
So hi, my name is Cathrine. As Yasmina said, I am a designer, gone strategist, and I currently head up the experience design department at Making Waves, and we're a design and technology consultancy based in Oslo. And for the last 2 years, I've been working on different projects for service innovation for the SpareBank 1 group.
And I'm Alexander, and I work at SpareBank 1 Insurance. And SpareBank 1 Insurance is owned by an alliance of 20 local savings banks, which is a problem in itself. We're one of the largest insurance companies in Norway, and what we're going to talk about today is personal risk insurance. And in that area, we are the market leaders. We've done approximately 1/3 of every new business in Norway. And that is a position we're very keen to defend, of course.
Right. So this is a talk actually then of how service design helped us improve the health declaration experience. And it helped us create SpareBank 1's first responsive website, and it also helped us achieve alignment in a complex organization like Alexander talked about. But we also want to tell a story about how two different mindsets actually came together in a way that was beneficial for the end result. And that is this story. It's how a financial institution learned to embrace human-centric innovation, and how a design consultancy learned what really matters in the world of bank and finance. But let's go back to the beginning, Alexander. So please tell us, what is the health declaration, and what were the problems you were having with this process?
Well, you have to understand that the old process is a very manual and laborious process. Because of the generous welfare systems in Norway, people don't understand that they need personal risk insurances, because they think that if something happens to them, the government will take care of them. And so when they come in to talk to the financial advisors, they don't know that they need personal risk insurance, and the financial advisors have to recommend, and most of our customers buy the personal risk insurance after recommendation by the financial advisors. And when they have signed the offer, they have to fill out a manual paper form. And as you can see, this is just a part of the form, and I guess nobody in here really wants to fill out that kind of form. And that was, and when we receive the form, we have to do a manual risk assessment of the form itself to be able to give the customers the proper terms and conditions for the insurances. And because of the paper form, we're not able to ask them detailed questions. And when we risk assess the paper form, we have sometimes, or in half the cases, we have to send the customers a new form and ask them to fill out additional information. And the trouble is that every time we ask the customers for information about their health, we lose customers. And when we lose the customers, we lose business in general. And when we send them into another loop and we ask for additional information, we lose more customers. And at the same time, we're starting a project where we wanted to automate the risk assessment process. And because I was working in both these parts, working with the process here and working with the project with risk assessment, I saw that you could connect the dots, and it was easy for me to see that it would be a huge risk for the project if we didn't find a way to improve the process and keep not losing the customers in the process at all. So we contacted Cathrine and Making Waves and asked them to help us to get the facts right, because we didn't know why we lost the customers.
So on that background, we kind of had this hypothesis that people actually lack the motivation for filling in this health declaration form. They think it's boring, and also they might not understand why it's really necessary because they don't really understand their need for the personal insurance. So we went to talk to some actual people. And the people that we talked to, they had all been through the health declaration process with SpareBank 1 within the last month. And we asked them, is it really so? And we asked about their motivation. We asked about their different meetings with the bank and the insurance agents. We asked about their understanding for health insurance in general. And these are some quotes from our findings. So they told us that basically the meeting and the advisor did a great job in explaining the need for insurance and for health declaration. They were actually really happy with the product that they had purchased in the meeting. Then they told us this, like, I was sick for 1 week 2 years ago. Is that important? Should I declare that? Then they also told us that we never heard anything back until I got this really strange letter. And the last thing that we focused on was they told us this a lot. When I called my advisor, who's then the financial advisor that they had formed a relationship with, he wasn't able to help me. And this is due to backstage processes, actually, that the financial advisor cannot have insight into a health declaration of the customer. Only the health agents or the underwriters can have this insight. So this was our initial problem understanding, as Alexander explained. And then after the interviews, this was our problem understanding. So as you can see, we discovered that actually the problems or the challenges were much more complex, and they were distributed into different areas of the existing process. There were still several problems connected with the form itself. The form had a language which was very difficult for ordinary people to understand. And also it was hard, as the quote pointed at, to understand the necessary level of detail in the declaration that you were giving. Then it was extremely hard to get help, and this was an issue in several steps. When you called somebody, you might risk that they could not actually help you, and also they couldn't tell you where to go to get the help you were needing. Then a lot of customers spoke about this like black hole, that when they had actually done all the work to complete the form and they sent it, they heard nothing. It was like just sending it into a black hole. No response, no feedback, what to expect. Did I get the insurance? Will I know in a month? Will I know in 2 months? What's really going on? And the fourth thing that we, of course, discovered was that this loop of sending the request letter for additional information. The users that got this letter, first of all, again, it was really tough language, so they often did not understand what it was about. And if they did understand it, they just gave up. We just completely lost them. They were not interested in adding more information. So the recommendations that we gave to SpareBank 1 and Alexander after the insight phase was actually that you really need to work with the language, you need to simplify it, you need to clarify the questions, and please minimize the need for additional information. You need to give your users or customers proper help throughout the entire process. And you need to be transparent and give them feedback as to where they are in the process and what to expect next. And I was really happy, and I thought it would be very easy to just move forwards and make things right, actually.
Yeah, and through the work with Cathrine, I was very confident as well. I went back to the headquarters and I talked to my colleagues, and I was very confident that when we presented the facts, they said, well, of course we have to prove the experience. Oh God, I was wrong. Things weren't that simple. When I spoke to them, they said, well, you only talked about to 5 different people. And are you really sure that this is our average customer? We don't see them as our customer. We've heard the phrases before, they're familiar to us, but still we don't believe you. And when I talked to them, we found out I had 3 challenges I had to overcome to be able to get the decision to improve the customer experience. And I had to verify and quantify the qualitative finds that Cathrine and Making Waves has done for us. And we had to verify and quantify the lack of support and assistance throughout the process. And we had to create a business case on customer experience. The good thing is that we had a customer satisfaction survey coming up, and I was able to influence the questions and answers that the customers could give. And one of the answers or the questions we asked is that, did you find it difficult to complete the form? And the answer they could say, some of the answer was if it was difficult to know what information the company needs. When we got the information back, I was kind of confused because 2 out of 3 said that I have absolutely no problem filling out the form. So we revised the question again, and it started, and we looked at the answers, and we made it customer-centric instead. And we changed the wording to difficult to know the necessary level of detail in the answer, according to the findings and the qualitative finds. And what we find now is that the majority of the customers had problems filling out the form if you asked them asked them for the detailed information. So finally, we had some proof that the findings in the qualitative research was actually something we could work with. And as I told you, we had 20 different local savings banks all across Norway. And we saw that some of the banks had absolutely no loss of customers due to lack of health disclosure forms. And some of the branch offices lost almost half their customers. And that is a huge problem. And it told us that there is a difference in the way the customers get support and are followed up throughout the country and between the different branches. So comparing the different branches, different SpareBank 1 branches, show that there is no consistency in the way customers were followed up in order to avoid the business. And they also said, show us the money. Basically, I had to create a business case to say that the customer experience has value for us. And throughout the process, we found this. If you're going to make customers use an online form, which you had to do to be able to automate the risk assessment process, if you only had 20% of the customers using the online form, we would actually, the investment wouldn't be profitable. But if you were able to increase the online forms to 50 or 80%, the project would be very profitable for the company. And finally, we had a direct link between customer experience and business value. So what did we do now? Well, we didn't know what the new design or the new service should be, so we contacted Cathrine and Making Waves again and asked them to help us to design the new service.
So then we could move on into the design phase, and this is the brief that we got. Redesign the customer journey, advise us if we need to adapt the service for mobile, involve the organization actively so that SpareBank 1 can actually own this product, and contribute into the redesigning of the form. For different reasons, the design job of the form itself was done by another design agency. So we used service design tools, and we used co-creation as the main tool actually for anchoring. We had several workshops throughout the entire process with different stakeholders, financial advisors, and also the other designers involved. And we did it to gather insight, we did it for ideation, we did it for concept creation and feedback on the concept. So we had quite a few workshops and collecting everyone around the table. Then we used a scenario-based design process. We made the experience that we wanted to deliver very visual, and we sketched it out step by step, and we hung it on the wall to create a shared understanding in these workshops. What is it that we want to achieve? And you can see from the post-it notes that we collected a lot of feedback as to, what steps should come first and after, how can you improve, what you need to think about at the different stages.
When we changed it for the 100th time, I thought Cathrine was going to kill me.
Yeah, we went many rounds with the scenarios. So in the end, we mapped out the experience like this. So firstly, obviously, we did a lot of work on the form itself in collaboration with the other design agency. It has undergone a huge transformation. It's now digital, and digital in itself allows the form to be to adapt and to be customized to the individual users. So we only ask questions that are relevant and that are based on the information they have already given us. Then the language, of course, is simplified, and we use a variety of different pointers and tooltips to actually embed the help functions in the form itself, so that it's always at hand. Here's a peek at the form design. It's currently in beta, and it will launch in Q4. It's been a lot of prototyping and iterations involved in this work. A detail here, as you see, it's in Norwegian, unfortunately, but the green more info, I guess it's easy to understand. It's used throughout the form to give you this information about the detail level. For instance, here it states that you need to remember to also declare any medical products that you use that your doctor has not, prescribed for you. So that was the form, but you will remember that the form did not represent all the issues, and I think this is actually the value of service design in this process, is that we were able to not just look at the UX in the form itself, but we had to look at the entire process. So we had to establish a system where actually the users would get immediate response and immediate results. So when you do this, you just eliminate this void and the black hole of information. In this new digital process, you get the answer and you get your result a few seconds, barely, after you push send for your health declaration. For some cases, manual assessment is still necessary, but then what we did is that we made that process transparent. So if your declaration needs manual assessment, we will tell you about it, why it needs it, and also how long it will take. And if there is a duration of a couple of weeks, you will get regular status updates so that you are informed. And I'd also like you to note that in this process, we never ask the customer for any additional information. We have received all the information from the customer. So the manual assessment or the manual only requires us to collect information from third parties, such as, for instance, the doctor or the Social Security office. Then the last thing we did is that we put in place a system of alerts. So if you, for one reason or another, stop during the declaration process or just forget about it, you get some reminders from us. And you get these on your mobile phone. And this actually turned out to be the winning argument for a responsive site. Because if you send an SMS alert, you really want to enable the user to take action on that device. And if we ask them to switch device or change platform, that would create another barrier. And we were really looking for flow and wanted to avoid all barriers. Then we wrapped it up by creating this rather huge blueprint. And you can say something about this.
Well, for our organization, this was kind of the document from heaven. I mean, it's just a blueprint, but it gives a very clear understanding of for all the involved stakeholders, in which place and in the experience they delivered their services. And that was something that they haven't seen before. And it was really, really good for us to get an understanding.
So, to conclude, we find that using the service design approach, it really helped us in finding and solving the real problems connected to this health declaration experience. And it made us improve both the journey and the touch points involved. And it also helped us to create pride and ownership back at SpareBank 1. And they're really, really proud of their new solution.
And taking the business-centric approach helped us really quantify and verify our findings. If we hadn't gotten the initial feedback from my colleagues saying that we don't believe this, we wouldn't have gotten all this information that would actually end up helping improve the service. And it also made us connect human-centric design to business value, which was something we had never been able to do before.
So, our final words, Alexander.
Well, the basic thing, I think, is that most of you think that the main point is to understand the customer's needs, but you also have to understand the needs of the decision makers in order to create value for your users. As Steen said, if you can't get your ideas out there, it has no value at all.
So remember that good design is beneficial both for the user and for the business, and prepare yourselves to tell that story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So thank you, Alexander, Cathrine. Our audience, any question on their medical underwriting, their very hands-on approach? That was very hands-on. That was excellent.
Thank you.
Anyone?
I think there's one there.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So let's talk. I'm here. up here. So we talk a lot about service design. For just a second, I want to talk about design and aesthetics, because what I always wonder is how important is the creation or the creative part of how I design my deliverables to make them more acceptable to the client. Do you, in your process, and we saw the same thing with the guys from Continuum, like how important is it to actually make something beautiful or make something, in the other case, that looks very like future-driven, and how important is that to actually help them get into, like, first say, oh, this looks really interesting, this looks really nicely done, put together, now let's actually dig into that. Is that something that you do, like, consciously say, okay, we have to make this slide or this blueprint more nicer, or is it something that you find that you don't really think about at all, and you just like let the project drive the aesthetics of the deliverables?
Well, I can answer about the beautifulness of the blueprint. Actually, our blueprint is not very beautiful, and it's also made in Excel. And that was to actually be able to hand that tool over to the organization. Like, we've used InDesign, and we've put a lot of emphasis on actually creating a beautiful, visually stunning blueprint before. But we found out that we didn't want to do it because we wanted to just give them a really simple tool that could be living in their organization. So we used Excel, and we kept it to the basics, just basic text input, and then we actually, I don't know if you noticed, but we added the scenario steps that the customer has to go through. So that was really conscious, and I think I think that was the right choice. And for the form design, the touch point that actually the user interacts with, I haven't been completely part of that process, but I know they've done numerous iterations, and it started out being something much more colorful and emotionally connecting. At least that was the intention of the designers. And then through prototyping and testing, they found out that they had to go for this much more efficient look, because the user really just wants to get through this form, so you need to make it look as quickly and easy as possible.
The thing is that when the customer fills out the form, it's something that is very, very personal. You're giving information that you probably don't even give your wife sometimes. So it's very personal. And when we designed the form itself, we actually made the illustrations. We're very adamant that we're not going to use photographs at all, and you use illustration as a starting point for each kind of heading, because we have divided the form into different sections. And that was a conscious decision to use illustrations. But the form itself, when we have user tested it, the thing that the customers are more concerned about is the wording of the questions, that they actually understand it, and not the form and how it looks and everything that's surrounding it. So basically, just keep it simple, keep the language simple, and it's going to be much easier for the customers to fill out the form and actually finish it and be able to become customers of SpareBank 1.
Okay, right. Thank you. We'd love to hear more of your questions, but unfortunately we're out of time. So if you do have any more questions, just find these two guys later. They'll be around for the rest of the day.
Thank you.
And thank you. Big hand for Cathrine and Alexander.